Okay, we're cutting a little short today. How's it going? Teddy is here from Notional Finance with some big news. Notional Finance has been just crushing it on Arbitrum over the last couple of months due to the STIP and then also deploying their V3 there. And now they have some big news that they've launched on V3. So welcome, Teddy.
Thanks for having me. I am happy to be here, Sam. So I can give kind of a little update. And actually, first of all, just thanks for all the kind words. I really appreciate that. Um, uh, so I think since the last time we talked, really the big news from our side is that Notional V3 is now live on Ethereum. So in addition to Arbitrum, we're also on Ethereum now, and that's just like it's been a major step forward for us, and a lot of work went into this, and so we're now live. We went live yesterday at around noon, so under 24 hours now. So far, we've gotten on V3 on Mainnet, we've gotten about $1.5 million in deposits, and we're building from there. So I'm excited to be able to access all the opportunities that Mainnet sort of affords. So something you don't think about very much, or maybe isn't obvious, is that for Notional, just being on Mainnet is a massive unlock, right? Because actually, it's like a question people have is like, why even be on Mainnet anymore instead of layer twos when your transaction cost is like 1,000 times cheaper on the layer two? And I think that's true, and hopefully we will see more activity sort of go onto layer twos and move off the layer one. But for now, there's actually some of the hottest opportunities in all of DeFi are exclusively on Ethereum L1. So you just can't access them on a layer two. So like specifically, Athena, that's on L1, and all of these kind of liquid restaking tokens and all this eigenlayer points farming and all that stuff is also only on L1. And so, there's a good reason why there's a lot of capital here. And having Notional V3 on Mainnet now will enable us to sort of tap into that. And I think, provide a lot of value to users who are, excited about these hot new things.
Yeah, so let's take a look at some of the offerings that you guys have on Mainnet right now. Let me make this a little bit bigger. So it looks like it's just the core components right now. This is on Arbitrum. The core components are like ETH, DAI, USDC, Rapsteth, Frax, RETH, Tether, Coinbase ETH, and then you mentioned a couple of other products that are going to be added as well too.
Yeah. So basically, we're kind of in the liquidity bootstrap phase, is what I like to call it. So right now we have incentives live for depositing in ETH, USDC, USDT, and RETH. So those are the currencies we're incentivizing on Mainnet, and right now that's all we have live. So you can deposit, you can also borrow, but we don't have any of the leveraged yield strategies live yet. And the reason for that is because before you can have a leveraged yield strategy, there need to be deposits on Notional that you can borrow, right? So we're in the liquidity bootstrap phase. I think we'll be here another day or two. But once we've sort of attracted, some amount of initial deposits, which we already have, but we want a little bit more. But once we've attracted this like initial deposit base, we're going to start unlocking these leverage yield strategies. So actually the first one we're going to deploy is going to be a stablecoin strategy where you can deposit USDC and get leverage exposure to the Go USDC USDT liquidity pool on Balancer and Aura. So that's actually going to be a great strategy. We're launching that in partnership with Aave and their sort of liquidity manager called Token Logic. And right now, that Go liquidity pool is yielding 33%. And so if you're able to borrow USDC from Notional at 10 to 12%, and you just lever up that differential, and those yields are going to be really, really good.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the first strategy we have out of the gate, and I'm really excited for that one. And then coming fast on the heels, we're going to have some ETH strategies that are targeting these liquidity staking tokens. Easy ETH and wrapped ETH are going to be our first strategies. So you're going to be able to earn yields from holding those tokens, and then also all the points, right? So you're going to get like leveraged exposure to the EtherFi, Easy ETH, and EigenLayer points using those strategies, which I think is going to be great. And then we've got lots of other strategies too. We have lots of CRV USD liquidity pools that we are going to offer. So we're gonna do CRV USD USDC, CRV USD USDT, PYUSD USDC. Basically just like there's a lot of stablecoin and ETH denominated opportunities, and in the next few weeks here, we're gonna take advantage of all of them that we can. So really excited to sort of ramp things up on Mainnet.
So what's been your opinion on the STIP? I have your chart here. You guys have seen pretty significant growth since its beginning at January 14th, essentially starting at like $1 million and topping out right around $20 million during the STIP program. Quite a bit of inflows on Arbitrum across all of your markets. Now sitting at 16 million, and there's $51 million of open debts. And so how's the STIP program been?
I mean, the STIP program has been great. I'm very grateful and thankful to the Arbitrum community. It's been, I think for any DeFi project, I think the hardest thing is getting attention, or like that's a really hard thing to do, right? And the STIP grant has been great in terms of just like helping to introduce Notional to the Arbitrum community, because we were totally new there. We didn't really have much of a footprint, and so like the ARB tokens both gave people an incentive to provide liquidity on Notional and try it out, and also like in addition to the cash incentive, it helped channel attention to Notional, because everybody knew about the ARB STIP and they could see all the different protocols that got an allocation. And so, I mean, it was honestly like a fantastic experience for us. And I think the STIP is a great program. And for anyone that's like, considering L2s to deploy on, the ability to just get an incentive grant and be able to spend that on your users is like, it's massively helpful. Because I think it's like, I'm not super familiar with how Optimism does things, or kind of any of the other L2s at the moment. We're potentially considering expanding to other L2s, but I haven't really done the deep dive. But I think in general with incentive programs, there's usually a lot of interest to give a team a grant to build something, where the grant is meant to fund development work or audits, things like that. People like giving grants like that. And those are very, very helpful. But at the same time, like a grant that can be used as incentives for your users, like people are generally less willing to give that kind of grant, but it is like extremely helpful, right? And it's great that Arbitrum has been doing that.
That's really cool. Well, it's good to see that you're continuing to grow and continuing to offer these options. I just wanted to bring up the leverage vaults that you were talking about. So on Arbitrum, they're operating. There's a USDC vault that's offering up to 88%, and a USDT vault that's offering up to 60%. How do these work?
Yeah, so basically what's happening here is you are depositing USDC. You're specifying how much leverage you want, right? So let's say you want 5.88x leverage, or max it out if you want. And then basically what's happening is you're depositing the amount of USDC you want to deposit, and then simultaneously you're borrowing a multiple of that from Notional, and then you're depositing it into a smart contract that executes a yield strategy, right? So in this case, the yield strategy is take the USDC, deposit it into the USDC DAI, USDT, USDCE balancer pool, take those LP tokens, stake them on Aura, and then harvest and reinvest all the incentives, right? So all of that is abstracted. It's all done automatically on the back end. The user doesn't have to do any of that. And that strategy by itself yields like 17.4%, right? So then when you are levering that up on Notional, you're borrowing at 10%. You get to earn like a multiple because of the differential between the rate you're borrowing and the yield that the strategy is paying, right? So you increase your leverage, you make more. You can actually choose, and an additional thing is you get to select your borrow terms. So you get to select whether you want to borrow at a variable rate or whether you want to borrow at a fixed rate, and you can see the impact that has on your total APY. If you go click that drop down under step 2. So it basically, this product is built to give people, a lot of flexibility and control over what they're doing and the yield that they're making, and really I think a differentiator between this product and a lot of other stuff that you see in DeFi is we've really tried to emphasize transparency. I think that there are other sort of leveraged yield vaults, but generally the way those work is, it's just going to show you an APY, and then you deposit into it. You don't know what's happening. You don't know what the risks are, and somebody else is just doing all the stuff for you. And we really wanted to build it differently, where the strategy is codified. You're not trusting us. You see exactly what's happening. So this is what we built.
It's pretty cool. So I'm guessing this is going to come to ETH, and there's going to be stuff like the LRTs and Athena added to this that could really supercharge the yield.
Yes. So like I said, the first one we're doing is the Go USDC USDT pool, which is the exact same type of strategy as what you're looking at here. It's just focused on the Go USDC USDT pool on Balancer and Aura on Mainnet. And then the LRT strategies are coming shortly after. And as for Athena, we're still sort of taking a look at that and working through our diligence on the risks of that strategy. So we haven't firmly decided to do that, but we are actively considering it.
But the yields are pretty high. You can see that there's for the just regular mainnet vaults, USDC is getting 64%, ETH is getting 45%, RETH is getting 18%, USDT is getting 160%. So it's pretty incentivized right now for people to come and deposit. You can find that at Notional Finance, and hopefully these grow. I mean, I really like the idea of using fixed rates to be able to leverage farm. That kind of takes away a lot of the variability that you would have normally when doing these looping strategies.
Yep. So I think, it's, I would say that the fixed rates really make it they really make a difference in the context of a leverage farming strategy. Because generally what you see is that lending protocols that allow you to do leverage farming, tend to have really volatile borrowing rates, right? In terms of variable borrowing rates, because you can do this sort of leverage farming, and there's massive demand to borrow to do that. And so the ability to fix the rate really, does help sort of reduce your risk. And for at least it feels good for Notional, because we've been around for like 4 years, and it took us a long time, I would say, to find like a use case that really makes sense for fixed rates. So it's nice to like, feel like we've really found that.
Yeah, that's great. So what do you expect? So you talked about some of the products, but what are you expecting on the longer term with Notional?
Yeah, I mean, basically like the idea for Notional, it's really like um, what Notional is it helps capital flow from passive lenders to the best like opportunities in DeFi. So the highest earning yield strategies in DeFi. Like that's what the point of Notional is, right? So it gives people the option to lend in a variable or fixed rate, and then that capital is allocated into DeFi yield strategies by people who use these leverage yield strategies, right? So by borrowing the capital that's in Notional and allocating to the leverage yield strategies, the leverage user is able to multiply their APYs and farm with a larger stack, and then pay the interest to the lenders, right? So that is like the basic purpose of Notional. And looking forward, like we are going to extend that as much as possible. So that means like any strategy which is profitable, has enough capacity and demand, and can be codified and liquidated safely, such that lenders' funds are not at risk, we will build a vault for it, right? Like that is the point. And so, the idea is that as a lender, you can put your funds there and know that they will be allocated to all these different yield strategies as like the yields change, and like and so you can sort of offload that task to the sort of leverage users who are borrowing your funds and doing the individual allocation. So that's the basic structure. It's a way I've been explaining it is that it's kind of like, a question people have is like, it sounds a lot like Yearn, right? Where you're depositing into a yield vault and then a strategist is allocating those funds. And I would say that's correct, but there's like a key difference, right? Which is that in a yield vault like Yearn, your funds you are directly exposed to the risk of a yield strategy, right? So if a yield strategy loses money for whatever reason, you lose money as a depositor, right? Now Notional is different because like any losses from a yield strategy, the leverage user takes, right? And so there's an entire collateralization and liquidation framework that protects lenders from the direct risk of the yield strategies. So that is like the key difference that I think is important. And like, so I think it's an interesting architectural difference. It makes lending in Notional safer, and it also makes it possible for Notional to list a greater variety of strategies. Because something you see with like yield vaults like Yearn is that because they know that the depositor is directly exposed to the strategy, what they end up doing is they like only use strategies that are very, very simple and have very, very low risk of loss, right? Now, Notional, like because of our structure, we're able to like list strategies that are kind of higher volatility, and without forcing the lender to take that volatility, because the leverage user is happy to take that volatility because that volatility can mean higher APYs and they can accept some risk of loss, right? So that's like anyway, the vision for Notional, is ultimately to codify any strategy that is profitable, demanded, and can be liquidated, and just build a vault for any strategy like that. Yeah,
it's very cool. So people can go and check out Notional Finance at notional.finance. Also, we've had Teddy on several times before talking about Notional and what they're offering all the way through the STIP. I think this is probably your third or fourth time coming on the show.
I think it's third time. Third time. Yeah.
But it's great to have you here, and go check out Notional. We'll have a link in the show notes, and you can go find it there.
Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate coming on.
All right. Thanks, Teddy. Bye.